Hello, and welcome to this special session about smart gaming. I am joined today by Luc Delany, who is the CEO of the International Social Games Association. And today we're going to have a chat about mobile games. We're going to talk about the basics, some tips for mobile gamers, but maybe a little more so for parents. And we're going to have some suggestions for additional resources. Now, before we begin, I want you to keep in mind that all the information we're discussing today is available on smartmobilegamers.org, which is a site created and maintained by the ISGA, and it was developed as a free resource for parents, educators, and gamers looking to learn more. So, hi, Luke. Welcome.
Hi, Rachel. Nice to see you. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. How are you? It's been a while.
Yeah, it has been. It has been a while. Yeah, it's been a busy time for the industry. All of this lockdown means a lot more gaming and a lot of people talking about it. So, busy time.
Absolutely. So before we get started, for those who aren't familiar with the ISGA, can you tell us a little bit about it and what you guys do there?
Sure. So, the International Social Games Association was set up. Well, we set it up 8 years ago now. So we're going into our ninth year, and really, it's to represent mobile games companies, to help educate policymakers, to work with researchers, to work with games companies, to look at what are some of the concerns that get raised about games and to address any real concerns there may be. And sometimes we do a bit of myth busting too, because there can be a little bit of hysteria around games, as you know very well.
Yes, absolutely. Especially now, as you mentioned at the beginning, over the last year, I'm sure mobile games have seen a surge. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but the hysteria is still strong about games,
Yes.
despite the fact that they're playing a great role right now. I would say in keeping us connected and entertained during during lockdown. So let's start with the basics. What is a mobile game?
So a mobile game kind of does what it says on the tin, right? It's a game that people play on their mobile phones or on their tablets. They tend to be a little bit different from console games than your Xbox and your PlayStation or your PC game. They're generally quite easy to learn. They kind of have a
Mhm.
low learn rate, so you can get
Mhm.
to play them pretty quickly. Um, Although as phones are, they're becoming little computers now. So
They
they
are.
are increasingly sophisticated in the kind of games that you play. But generally speaking, it's those kind of bite-size, I was going to say whilst you're waiting at the bus stop, but you're
Yeah.
not going to waiting at the bus stop
We
for
don't
the
do
last
that
game.
anymore.
But
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point though.
you'll be playing like a bubble burst game in the ad break
Mhm.
whilst you're waiting for your show to come up.
Yes, that's that's a more relevant example to today. But I think that's a good point. Mobile games do tend to be pick up, put down. You don't need a lot of skills to play them. Yeah, you can do 5 minutes or 10 minutes at a time or more. I mean, I know my husband plays some games that he's staring at his phone for extended periods of time, but you could put it down after a few minutes if you wanted to. So the industry is huge. I read a third of the global population play mobile games.
It is true,
Yeah.
and it's only getting bigger. So the games industry as a whole is estimated about $160 billion worth as an industry.
Yikes.
That's bigger than film, TV, and music combined. And so we're all aware of games and we see them in our daily lives, but I think we just don't realize just how big the industry is. And
Yeah.
over the last year, mobile has grown to be the largest segment of the games industry and is the fastest growing too. So the last year, obviously 2020, a lot of people have been finding ways to keep themselves entertained and engaged. And
Hmm.
games are a really nice way of doing that because even though you and I are in different continents right now, we could still be playing a game together at the same time.
Yeah, and I don't think people realize how big mobile games really are. We talk a lot about the Xbox and the PlayStation, but
Yeah.
more people have a phone than a console, I would argue.
Oh, you don't need to argue it.
It's overwhelming. Yeah. And I think, do you think this is bigger for the younger population or is it kind of like across all ages?
It is definitely across all ages. And
Okay.
we put on our site, so we've got a basics section. So if people aren't really familiar with how games work, what different genres there are, you can have a look and get a better understanding of how games work and where to download them safely and that kind of thing. So the average age of a gamer, as we know, is kind of mid to late 30s, and that's often surprising for the kind of non-industry person.
Yeah.
And for mobile games, it's actually even slightly older. It
Oh,
depends on the game.
yeah.
It depends on the game though. So your bubble burst games will be slightly skewed towards women and slightly older. And then you have games which are more, the team battling games,
Yeah.
more multiplayer, tend to skew slightly younger.
Yeah.
But still, most of these games aren't actually targeted at children, even if they have a kind of cartoonish appeal. They have this broad appeal because they want to appeal to as many people as possible.
Right, of course. And I guess their key demographic is in their 30s and not
Yeah.
younger. Yeah. So that's a really good point about the updated website that we mentioned earlier, smartmobilegamers.org. There is a whole section about the basics, and I talk a lot with parents, and I find that we need to start with the basics. What is a game? Who is playing it? Where do I get them? And you have a whole host of new information up as a resource.
We've got an update now. So obviously we're recording this to go out on Safer Internet Day. We feel it's really important to be part of that community, of the safety community as well, because we do take our responsibility very seriously and want to make sure that people feel empowered and informed about the choices they make when they're online and online on their phones. So we explain things about ratings, so you can see who do we think who the game's appropriate for, things about privacy and things like that, which are also paramount concerns for people.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to ask you about that. So there are different sections of information. Some would be very important to parents. I want to briefly highlight a couple of them, like money. Money is very important to parents, and some mobile games are free, some aren't. Can you tell us a bit about it?
Yeah, there was a time when all games were listed as free to play, which kind of really was a little bit misleading, and industry has changed its behavior. It doesn't do that anymore. So you have games you do actually have games which are free to play, but there will be adverts in there, most likely.
Right.
So you need to be aware that if you have a phone and you're an adult, you may see adverts that are suitable to you. If you hand that to your child, they're going to see those adverts too. So
Yeah.
I'm not saying that people are necessarily looking at inappropriate content, but there's a chance that in your ad profile, you might see something that you don't want your kid to see.
Yeah.
But one of the concerns that people still have is the kind of accidental in-app purchasing.
Yes.
And again, that's where I've got my phone set up for me. I'm happy to quickly spend a few pounds or dollars within a game, but if I've handed my phone to my child, I need to know that you need to put the password in to make it.
Yes.
Or
Yes.
it needs to use my Face ID. So it still happens despite lots of attempts to educate and lots of roadblocks put in to create parental controls and educate parents. It does still happen. So we also explain, if you're on Apple, on the App Store there, or if you're on Google Play, and someone does make some accidental purchases, how you can notify the platforms to try and resolve that too. And they're getting a lot better at that.
Good. Yes, my daughter plays a lot of games, and she definitely has accidentally, I don't know how accidental it was, purchase things. But we were able to follow the instructions and go back and be like, no, we didn't want to spend $100 in this game. Please.
Yeah. But it is still quite easily done, and even experts, like us, which I think we could claim to be.
Yeah, that's true. Still happens.
I found, we've got the Nintendo Switch at home as well, and my 6-year-old knows his way around that in a way.
Oh yeah.
Is mind-boggling.
Oh yeah.
And I always told him he had to put on his profile, but if he goes to my profile, which he can do quite early on once you started up without putting a password in, but you could have done,
Yeah.
then he was able to access kind of multiplayer features within things which I didn't want him doing, and I blocked it on his profile. But that's savvy.
Yes.
So
It is.
we're always playing catch up.
Yes, and you need to know that those are there because we made the same mistake. My daughter plays a lot of Minecraft, and she would play on my husband's profile, and all of a sudden she'd be in these chat rooms with people, and I'm like, this is strange. You're not supposed to be able to access. I'm on Daddy's profile. Oh, okay. We need to not do that. Yeah.
I have exactly the same story from this year. A lot of Minecraft.
Yeah. Oh, Minecraft is great. So yeah. So there's a lot of information because for us, even for me, it was a learning. I had to Google it. I had to find and go to smartmobilegamers.org, and you can find step-by-step instructions because we don't want our children playing money. And what we're talking about now, the second thing is privacy, and privacy is a huge concern.
It is, yeah, and increasingly so. We're more and more aware of how our data is used. Things that you could be targeted with, and what are the privacy settings that you can use on your device. So that's a new section that we've added to the site, and we hope it will be very informative for people who are trying to inform themselves better about that. And it's, again, we try and make it accessible and easy to understand. Yes. So many of the privacy policies you come across, it's that nightmare. Do you agree to this? Find my soul away without realizing.
Yeah.
We're trying to help parents and carers to navigate that.
Yeah, in an understandable way, because there's also a section on parental controls, but parental controls are a bit different from privacy concerns. Are they the same? There's overlap, or?
I suppose there can be a bit of overlap. And I suppose the third element adding to that is contact with people and strangers.
Right.
So, parental controls, some phones come with them already, and Apple have got a lot of parental controls that you can add to your device. Google has a lot of things as well, but there's other things you can get from the app stores. And the other consoles and devices have them too, and should be looked up. So that can help you with everything from screen time. How many hours have I been looking at a device today? And just keeping yourself informed about how long you're spending on the screen, or your child is. You can also set things like spending limits to try and control. You may actually want to use this as a tool to educate on managing your money. So there are parental controls that can help you control spend as well, setting spending limits or turn spending off, or require parental approval before spending, because maybe you've given your child some pocket money and they're allowed to spend $5 a week in games, which would be blocked, by the way. So there's the parental controls for that, stopping contact with strangers, also turning off chat features, for example, because you might not want your young person chatting with strangers. And then the privacy controls, things like don't track me, don't monitor what I'm doing, don't use my location, which are also things that you might want to turn off.
Absolutely. And that's, you bring up another point that I hear a lot, that parents don't even realize that some games do track their location. And you have to go in and turn that off, especially if your younger children are playing. No one needs to know where I live. That should be turned off. So we're talking about the revamp of the website. There's the basics. There's stuff about parental controls. There's stuff about how to get your money back when your child spends $100 on Mine Coins. What else? So there's new articles too. There's expert content, right?
Including from your good self. Yes, you've asked me to do some new content.
I might have done a few. Yes.
Yeah. So we know that we don't know everything, and we don't pretend to know everything. But we do turn to experts like yourself. We also have Dr. Richard Graham, who's a clinical psychologist here, who does a lot of work with young people and gaming. including dealing with, what do you do if people are spending too much time or money, or have concerns that they're losing control of how much they're spending on games. So we do look for the expert pieces. We've got a few pieces there. So one of the new ones is streaming, which you wrote. Twitch and YouTube have really grown in popularity for streaming. It's an entirely alien concept to anyone over the age of about 18, I think, sometimes. The idea that you're watching someone else play a game and realizing that sometimes people may use bad language when they're playing a game, and streaming to untold millions of people. So there's just those kind of helping a parent understand what is streaming, how does it work, what if your child says they want to be a Twitch streamer, what does it mean, what are they exposing themselves to as well. You get some pretty horrible people saying mean things to you if you're online.
Absolutely.
You may have overnight success as well, and how to handle those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So we have the streaming article. We've got a piece about in-app purchase as well by Richard Graham. A new piece actually we wrote internally, one of my colleagues, Simon, wrote, is about randomness and chance and loot boxes, which of course have also got a lot of attention in the last couple of years. And that's really about parents' concerns with, you're paying for something in a game, you don't know what you're going to get, it's a randomized outcome, and to a lot of people that feels a bit icky, it feels a bit like gambling. So that article helps explain really how loot boxes work. It's only about items that you get to use within the game. You can't make money from this. This isn't it's not really gambling. You're not making any money from it. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't address it. Of course. Think about it. So we've tried to tackle some of the thornier issues too. And thankfully, there are some experts in the world who can help write some of that.
Yes. I mean, it's always a joy to work with you, of course, but parents need this information, and they need it in a way that's understandable, because you can also Google like loot boxes, but you're going to get so many things to look at. You won't know where to start. So it's nice to have all the resources put together. Streaming as well. I get a lot of questions. Even my own mother, I stream sometimes, and she's like, I don't know what you're doing. I'm like, well, here's an article. This is what it's all about, and now you can learn. So it's really great to have it all together. So are there any other resources that parents should know about? Of course, the website is a great place to start, but...
Yeah, again, we don't pretend to be psychologists or mental health experts, but we know that those are concerns that people have either for themselves or for people in their care. So we try and signpost to some other external resources. There's the Family Online Safety Institute, which is a broader than gaming. It's all about family online safety. Fantastic organization based out of DC. So they have that good digital parenting guide, which is, like I said, broader than just games. Psychology Today has some really good resource too. We've pointed to that, so you can find that under the further resources tab. And the mental health organization Take This as well.
Close to my heart, Take This.
Yeah, we want to make sure that people can find the help that they need. So we try and provide obviously the basics, guidance on managing mobile games. You're managing in-app purchases, parental controls, those kind of things. The expert pieces with streaming and randomness, managing your time. And then if people have a need for more specialist advice, that's where we want to point them to those further resources.
It's great. It's good to have everything, like I said, all in one place. You can just go to smartmobilegamers.org, explore, and then if they don't have the answers, they have signposts to the people who do have the answers.
Exactly. We as we talked about at the top of the call, there's a lot of hysteria out there. A lot of people who are just anti anything, and they can be the most noisy. So we try and explain things in a balanced way. We try and address the harder topics around automatic play, or if you're worried about someone spending too much time, here are some tips and tools that you can use to manage yourself or help that person manage themselves. But if it's beyond that, then you need the experts, the real experts. But we're not, but we know and respect.
And that's what I love. That's why I always am up for contributing to stuff for the ISGA, because it really is just facts. It's just giving you facts and information. It's not feeding into hysteria or whatever the opposite equivalent of that would be. It's just like, this is what we know.
It needs to be,
yeah.
It's all happy, easy, and there's no problem here.
Yeah.
Because that's not true. People do, stumble and sometimes have problems. And for some people also it feels kind of hard to even start to research or understand the issues. So,
absolutely.
That's the idea.
Yeah, well, great. Well, thank you for coming to talk to me about it today, Luke. And for people who want to learn more, of course, go to smartmobilegamers.org. And yeah, if you have any questions, you can leave them below in the comments and we will address them. So nice to chat.
Thanks very much.